Well, we have some breaking news. If you haven't learned by now, you should know that the Cleveland Browns have signed Todd Monken as their next head coach. There's a lot of things that happened today on UCSS. We'll quickly break it down as only we can do right here on the Ultimate Browns. We'll talk about that. Jim Schwartz looks like he's on the out. Coming up with some of this information, and we'll break this down and give you a quick update on what I think uninterrupted as we talk about the Cleveland Browns coaching search coming down to Todd Monken and being the next head coach. We'll talk about it all on this episode of the breaking news episodes of the Ultimate Browns. Welcome on into the Ultimate Browns. Breaking news. The Cleveland Browns have signed Todd Monken as their next head coach. It looks like Jim Schwartz, who was up for the position as well, is a little hot behind the collar because he thought he was going to get this job. And it looks like the Browns may have to find another defensive coordinator because Jim Schwartz is looking to be out in Cleveland as well. Before we get into anything, we got to let you know that this episode is sponsored by the Cleveland Monsters. The Lake Erie Monsters are back for 1 weekend only on January 30th and the 31st at Rocket Arena. It starts with a 1-2-3 Friday and a Battle Together t-shirt giveaway, courtesy of True North Convenience Stores, for the first 5,000 fans. Then on Saturday, the first 8,000 fans receive a Zach Wierenski bobblehead, courtesy of the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. Enjoy returning players themed jerseys, Calder Cup photo opportunities, and more. And this step back into time, tickets are now available now at clevelandmonsters.com. Shout out to the Lake Erie Monsters. They will be back. There's some good stuff going on down there. Make sure you go out there, check out the Lake Erie Monsters, taking it back when they won it in the Cup in 2016. Great time, great opportunity, great injuries for the fans. Make sure you go check out those individuals down there this upcoming weekend. Now let's get to what you came for. The Cleveland Browns have made an announcement. They are signing Todd Monken as head coach. Now, let me just give you my personal thoughts on the situation. One of the things that I've always said was, I looked at the situation with Kevin Stefanski and said it had run its course. And I didn't have Todd Monken high on my list. I didn't have Todd Monken high on my priority list. I like Jim Schwartz better. I like Udinski better. I like Shieldhouse better. And I don't agree with some of the things that went down with Jim Schwartz. For what it looks like, the Cleveland Browns didn't do a good enough job of communicating with Jim Schwartz on how this thing should have went down. They kept saying publicly that they wanted him to stay on as defensive coordinator, but it seems that they didn't vet him well enough in order to know actually if he would be upset if he was not picked for this job. So that's one thing. I've always been a big proponent of communication because I think if you communicate, it puts out a lot of fires before you get there. And we do blogs all the time, and I talk about the perception of the Cleveland Browns and why a lot of people think they're dysfunctional. Some of these things that they do don't help themselves out. This search was, a situation where a lot of their top candidates came and went. And you got a guy in Jim Schwartz who you publicly said you wish would stay around, but he seems to be, he was called blindsided by it. It seems like he wasn't in on the conversation, and all it takes is a simple conversation to say, hey, Jim, we are interviewing you. We don't know where this project or where this process is going to take us. Would you be interested in staying on an event that you did not get the head coaching position? And he could tell you yes or no. He could say, listen, I want to put my hat in the ring for a head coach. If we don't make it, all good with me. I'll still stay around. Or he'll say, hey, I want to put my hat in the ring. I really want to be a head coach. So if you guys choose to go another route, I'm going to, gracefully bow out and decline to stay on as defensive coordinator because that's where my heart is set. I think if you're up front and you're up close and you do a really good job of explaining where you are and having an open lane of communication, I think you can avoid some of these things. And I tell you all the time, I'm a person that believes in communication, and I think the communication was a little flawed with the way they handled the situation with Jim Schwartz. He's already in your building, and it's a situation where you should be able to be more crystal clear with him and understand where he's going with this, right? So that's one part of it. The other part is, did I expect Todd Monken? No, I did not expect Todd Monken to be the coach. However, I've always said this as well. I can't be a person that says I would think the Browns need to go in a different direction from Kevin Stefanski, and then every move that they make afterwards to find the guy who they think is best for the position, I don't like that either. See, you can't have it both ways. I might not know the names. I might not really, it wouldn't have been my first choice. But if you look at it, you got to be a person that give them a benefit of the doubt, especially if you're a person that wanted Kevin Stefanski gone. So I got to be on board with giving Todd Monken an opportunity to show what he can do. And also, if we're all talking about it, everybody else was a little upset during the process when you said, hey, you don't want to marry a coach to a incoming coach to a guy that's already here. That was one of the things everybody was upset about. So, I mean, now it looks like Jim Schwartz is not going to be the defensive coordinator. That means Todd Monken has an opportunity to build his own staff. Isn't that what we said we wanted? We also, when Kevin Stefanski got let go, people for about a week and a half or so were upset that Kevin Stefanski was let go and Jim Schwartz was still here and Andrew Berry was still here. They said if one go, all of them got to go. Well, it looks like Jim Schwartz ain't here no more. So, hey, is that kind of what you wanted? It's kind of a circular way to get to whatever it is. But that's the thing about the process. I've learned and been around these processes long enough to know that I didn't know who Kevin Stefanski was, and he turned out to be doing a solid job for 6 years. I didn't know who any of these other guys were. And Kevin O'Connell and guys and Liam down in Jacksonville, all these guys, you never know what a person's going to do today or given the opportunity and the track and the length of track to get it done. So if I'm looking at it from a perspective, is it something that I would have picked? No. I've said I would have leaned with Jim Schwartz. I would have stayed with Schwartz and kind of filled in the offensive roster after that. But there's one thing that stood out to me in this conversation that we've been talking about. And that is when he said, when Andrew Berry talked about his plan that he put together. It tells me that there is a strong plan of action that he put forward, namely, specifically with the quarterback room that we have so far. And I do think that when I look at it, they're telling you that they're not going to move nothing in this quarterback room. I think the presentation that came along, and a lot of people may not want to hear this, the presentation was, I think I could win with Shedeur Sanders. I think I can get a lot out of him. Now, people have already brought up the point that the Ravens wanted to draft Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur said he thought he was a starting quarterback and didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. So they've done the homework on Shedeur Sanders. They played him 2 times in the division. And one thing that you can't lie about Todd Monken is he's been able to be successful as a coordinator in this league in terms of developing people. Lamar Jackson had one of the best seasons of his career with Todd Monken. He won a national championship at the University of Georgia under Kirby Smart. He's done a good job in the collegiate ranks. He's done a good job in the pro ranks, and he's done it in the division as well as the conference in the AFC North. So there's one thing that you can look at and you say, okay, I got a defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz, and yes, he's done a tremendous job. But the glaring need is offense. The glaring need is what the Browns need to do offensively. Would I try to keep Jim Schwartz? Would my communication have been better? Yes, it would have. However, when looking at that, if you're a person who says, I was going to give the Browns the benefit of the doubt and give the guy who they hired track record opportunity to prove what he can do, and you say that you think that a coach should be able to bring his own staff in, which a lot of people did, and if you believe that you're gonna get a guy who's going to come in and be no nonsense, he's not going to play around. People have talked about how he's a straight talker. So if you want your quarterbacks to get in a position in a way where he's going to teach them a certain way, he's going to be direct with the players, and it's going to give them a fresh shot at looking at an offensive scheme that's traditionally worked around the league, then you should be happy about Todd Monken. Some people on first meets the eye, It ain't everybody's cup of tea, right? I would have chose differently. However, I got to stick by what I said. I got to be 10 toes down, and I got to stand what I stand on. That whoever they was going to bring in here, whether it was Jesse Minter, whether it was Mike McDaniel, whether it was McDermott, whether it was Harbaugh, whether it was Shieldhouse, whether it was Udinski, whoever it was, I have to see it out. I got to be able to give a man opportunity to see what he can do, and I want to see what he can do and develop in a quarterback. With that being said, they put themselves under a microscope here, people. They did a really good job of putting themselves under a microscope, because now I think one of the disadvantages that they're going to have is they're going to have to come up with a staff on the fly. Before, I was assuming that they were going to have time to figure out the offensive side, because the defense was already going to be Jim Schwartz, whatever it is going to be. And whether they keep they guys they got over there, or they keep the roster pretty much the same. And the guys over there don't have to adjust anything. But now, this has got very interesting, because not only are you changing the offensive philosophy, you're changing the defensive philosophy a little bit too. So now you got to get buy-in from Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and some of these other guys. Now you may have people that are used to a certain system playing under Jim Schwartz, and now they're going to learn something new. Does that mean you're going to move deep? I think they would have to stay at a 4-3. All of the pieces and parts are 4-3 defenses. The next part is, how much does Todd Monken have already in his mind of guys who he wants to reach out to and get this thing moving? Because now there's a lot of hires that have been out. There's been a lot of candidates moving around. People are solidified. How much of a Rolodex did he have in mind for offensive coordinator? Defensive coordinator is on the board now, and your special teams coordinator is on the board, because Bubba Ventrone is going to be out. So this thing just exponentially ramped up. A lot of different valleys and peaks and different things move around. And it's going to be very interesting, because now we ask the question. We get into, now we know it's Todd Monken. Is he calling plays? Does he like Shedeur Sanders? What is his thought on Deshaun Watson? What type of coordinator is he bringing in? Is he going to be, what defensive coordinator? Does he have a person in mind for defensive coordinator? How much is the defense going to change? Are you going to keep Myles Garrett in his wide technique? These are all things that we're going to talk about, and the draft is coming up as well. He's an offensive guy. He said he had a specific skill set and specific sight for and view of what the offense could be. Does that mean they're going all offense in the draft? Does it mean defensive players are available? This is going to be it's very interesting to see where this is going to go. And for me, I kind of leave you with this. I'm not necessarily a person who is now at this point where I come from jumping up and down for names. I need to see the work. I need to see the evidence. Everybody can win a press conference. Everybody can feel good about a nice young coordinator. Everybody can feel good and have a certain comfort level because they know Jim Schwartz and they understand that. But sometimes in life, you got to be uncomfortable to succeed. It's brand new. Even for me, I'm like, man, I would have kept Jim Schwartz. But look, guys is going to have to adapt and get to it. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is that floor is now raised up. I think the expectation levels on the Cleveland Browns is they wanted to have somebody who has some experience so they can come in here and compete today. Rightfully or wrongfully, that's what they think. And now we're going to get to it to see if they are right. But the first thing they better get done, they better get Project Stockpile ready to go, because they're going to need some players. They ain't going to need some players. And for all that information, for everything that we got going on, make sure you're checking out the Ultimate Browns. Make sure you're checking the UCSS. If you're not tapped in now, boy, I'm going to tell you, this is the place you need to be, because we're going to be breaking it down from offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams. We're going to be talking about guys moving in and out, playbooks, free agency is coming up. So you're going to keep it locked. You got to keep it locked right here on the Ultimate Browns. With that being said, you never know what G. Bush might show up, radio, television, internet. But if you want the fresh cut on sports, then you know you got to keep the Clippers with you. Have a great rest of your evening. And as always, like we always say, go Browns.